Okay, can everybody hear us? You can just type if you can hear me okay. Welcome everybody. Just going to play a video for you while we wait for other people to join. Okay, we'll just pause the video because I think we had a little problem with the sound there, but that's fine. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is about the third video webinar we've done. And this time we're focusing on those of you who are sitting exams in the coming autumn series. So if you, just a bit of housekeeping, if you have any questions, please do type them into the box here. We'll be sharing the video. It is on YouTube, so you'll have the recording of the delivery of the webinar and all the comments and questions on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, that you'll be able to find once the recording's live. And obviously, just write in any questions you have as we run through, but there'll be a Q&A session at the end as well. So please, if you want to save up your questions for the end, that's absolutely fine, but also type them out as you go through. Just like to introduce those who are delivering the webinar with me. So in the background, we have somebody monitoring, making sure that everything works, though I did an error for the video sound, so don't blame that person. And we also have our exams team on call. If there's any sort of more technical questions around examinations, they'll be able to answer those in the chat box. So any specific questions you might have, please do post those in the chat box. But I'd like to welcome Helen Valls. Helen Valls will be co-delivering with me. Helen is a tutor and staff tutor at National Extension College and has been teaching and examining for over 15 years. So Helen's got a wealth of experience to be able to pass on to you today. We've got an hour, but the delivery of the session is only about 30 minutes, and then we've left a lot of time for question and answer. But during that sort of 30 to 40 minutes, we'll be focusing quite broadly on broad exam skills and exam tips for you. Some of it you may have heard before. So some of it you may be sort of revisiting. So we may be repeating things you already know, but that sometimes is a good thing, as you'll learn. Sometimes repeating things makes it embed a little bit more. But you may be joining us because you're retaking your GCSE or A-levels in the autumn. Or it could be that you're thinking about your spring exams. So, and that's absolutely fine. It's never too early to think about your revision and how you're going to cope with the examination. And we wanted to put this together because we also appreciate that a number of you won't have sat exams because public exams have been cancelled here in the UK for the last couple of years. So we just thought it'd be just a point where it would give you a little bit of information and also signpost you some other two other resources which may be of use for you. So you've got an introduction to the National Extension College. We saw the video. The autumn exam session, I'll just run through a few little facts and information around that. And then I'll be interviewing Helen, asking some sort of pertinent questions I think as an ex-teacher as well, some of my students would have asked me, and Helen's answers will hopefully give you information that you need on those particular answers. So the autumn session. So all GCSE and A-level subjects are offered, and plus some AS exams. The exams will be in their normal format, so there's no adaptations being made. So it is a normal exam sitting, as you would sit an exam in a room, as you probably have done in the past or might have done. The AS and A-level exams will be held in October. So if you haven't already made your entry, I'm afraid there will be late fees. So please get on. If you're a student with us, please contact our exams. If you're a student elsewhere, you will need to make contact with your particular college or exam venue. The GCSE exams will take place in November and December, and the entry deadline is in October. So if you're a GCSE student and you haven't entered and you're looking to enter for the exams in November and December, again, either contact ourselves at Exams Information or go to your college. So it'd be nice if they were going to be easier than before the pandemic, but they're not. There's some changes to some of the examinations to take account of the areas of subject knowledge that some of the students may have slight gaps in. So there's a little bit of reduced content on some of the examinations, and you can check on our exam board websites. So look at the exam board that you're sitting with to make sure that you have looked at the changes that there are for those particular examinations. Obviously contact ourselves or contact your college if you're unsure about that. There will be non-exam assessments, so these are called NEA. So those are going to be happening for subjects, and they're endorsements as well. So you can carry forward your GCSE English language, your modern foreign language, and your A-level science endorsements from the summer if you have those. And you can also just sit the written paper and not have the endorsement at all. That is an option as well. So in conclusion, what matters is your performance on the day. It's an important day for you. And really, the point of open general examinations is that nobody knows you, who you are. It's actually just based on the paper and the examination that you take there and then. So your personal context does not make a difference. So we really want to make sure you're prepared as possible for that by running through a few tips, a few ideas, and just reinforcing some areas of revision prep and exam preparation in the session. As I say, do type any questions, particularly on any of those slides that you feel you would like answers to in the question box. So I'm now going to introduce Helen again. Hi, Helen.
Hi, I'm all ready.
Good, just check we could all hear you. I don't have any sound issues with you as well. So Helen, as I said, is a staff tutor here. So Helen supports all our tutors. We have nearly 100 tutors working at National Extension College, and a good proportion of them are examiners as well as being teachers. So have a lot of experience of the examination process. So Helen, as I said, taught and examined for over 15 years. So I'm going to sort of throw some questions at you, Helen, if that's okay, and hopefully these will bring forward some good answers and some helpful tips. So hopefully I'm a student who's been studying already. So how can I make best use of what I've already learnt?
Yeah, that's the real key question, that you spent a long time studying. So how are you going to show it on the day? And I really think my best advice is to answer the question. Why do I say this when it seems so obvious? Because I've read, as an examiner, I've read so many excellent answers that do not answer the question. Let's take an extreme example from a student I taught once. The question was about social changes in the 19th century, and the student wrote about the 1900s. Confusing in this sort of stress of an exam, the 19th century with, that from 1800 to 1899 with the 20th century. So answering a different question from the one set is not going to get you marks. What you can learn from this example is you read the question carefully, you read it more than once, and perhaps you highlight the keywords as well with a highlighter or circle them, and then in your answer, you really focus on answering the question in front of you. To help you do this, you reuse the words from the question. So imagine the question is, to what extent were the reforms successful? You explain the significance of something. So I would expect as an examiner to see the words successful or significant dotted throughout the answer as the candidate argues his or her point, and not just to see the word in the final paragraph in their conclusion. To answer the question set, use these keywords from the question.
Thanks, Helen. Very good. I think that element of just circling some of the keywords, it sort of draws you into answering it really clearly then, doesn't it? So good tip.
Yeah.
Good tip number one. Thank you. We've just put a link on for a number of different sort of resources. So you'll have these slides and you'll be able to see some of these, quite a lot of them you may know already. You may have your favourite external websites where you gain some sort of additional resource for your revision, but just make sure that it's a website that is following the right curriculum for you and is following the right material. So just double check that when you go to any website. So there's lots of different revision methods. I used to put forward quite a lot of different ones to my students. How do I choose the right one for me?
Well, just let me say before I answer that question, that by the time you enter the exam hall, your work has been done. The revision has been done. You even be looking forward to sitting the exam and showing what you know and showing how you can answer the question well. Right, so let's get back to the question. Firstly, find out when the exam is, the day and the time. Then set your goal and work backwards from that. Secondly, how many weeks are there until the exam? If, for example, you have 7 weeks, then you know you must fit revision for all topics and papers into those 7 weeks. Thirdly, draw up a weekly timetable which fits in all the topics you want to revise. You don't have to allocate equal time to all the topics. So be sensible about your strengths and give more time to areas you know you must revise harder before the exam. Perhaps because you find them more difficult or because they carry more marks. So find out the date, weekly timetable, and work from there.
Good. It's a good tip around making sure you think about your strengths, so you don't just sort of put all your energy into the things you enjoy or you feel you're good at, which can be tempting when you're revising, isn't it? You need to really reflect and think, what areas do I really need to focus on? Give those more time. So I've got my weekly timetable. I'm just going to sort of start up. I suppose I have a daily one, some daily goals as well that I'd set?
Yeah, weekly, then daily. What you're aiming for is to make a routine so that studying, revising becomes a habit. Treat it like a college or workplace. You arrive at 9 a.m, you take a mid-morning break, you study some more, you take lunch, you have an afternoon break, perhaps you go and play sport or go on social media, watch TV and so on. So those are your rewards after you've studied. Then the next day you repeat, but you don't break this habit. At the weekends, you can do less, have a full day off, or only study in the morning, depending. That will give your brain time to work on the material so that you can fully digest it. It's worth remembering also that if you feel you've hit a brick wall, and this happens to all of us and is absolutely natural, it's because your brain takes time to assimilate the material. Your brain is working in the background and needs time to process things. So what you can't do 1 week but can do a week later is because your brain has been working. So habit, brain work, and routine.
Good. So in some ways easy to say, it's just obviously getting into those habits. I think a lot of the National Extension College students may have already formed some of those habits, we hope, because distance learning, you have to become quite sort of disciplined with how you operate, and it's just carrying that through into your revision period as well, I suppose, isn't it?
And planning it properly, yes.
Yeah, and I like the element around, not being too hard on yourself if something hasn't sunk in. Go back to it, sort of a week later, because your brain probably has a bit of overload at that point. So just be aware of what you're taking in, making sure that every bit of revision activity really is valuable, I suppose, isn't it? Okay, so I'm at my desk, which is, I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking at my notes. Do I just read through those for an hour? Will that have a good effect on my revision?
Just reading your notes isn't going to work. It's not enough. So the good thing is that you're at your desk with a space set aside, and this is more important than perhaps you realise. Set aside a space for study, have what you need around you, and always go there to study. It's about fixing that routine where you don't need to think about the environment. You naturally associate sitting at the desk with studying. In the same way that you go to the gym, you associate the gym with exercise, perhaps you associate 6 o'clock with walking the dog. So this revision has to become routine in the lead up to your exams. That hasn't quite answered your question. So do you just look at your notes and read them? So yes, that's the first step, but I strongly suggest you make this reading more active. And by that, I mean you read the chapter and then you test your recall. What were the main points? Give the detail, the dates, the process, the contributing factors, the consequences, the formula, the method. Say this out loud to yourself or to someone else, or to write it down, and then check it. What did you miss out? Involve parents or friends and get them to ask the questions and you tell them the answer. So this forces you to actively recall the information and embeds the learning. And this will prepare you to answer questions in the exam. Reading on its own isn't enough. Active reading is what you want. And just on another point, I know that students may use post-it notes or stick revision charts to the walls. That's great, but don't just stand there and read them. Walk it through, repeat it without looking at them. Tell it to someone else. Record yourself talking through these notes, but don't just read alone. It's not enough.
So it's active, not in the running around. It's active with your brain, actively engaging with it. Yeah. My daughter's doing her A-levels this year, and she was teaching me all about her psychology last night, which was very good. So she was running through it all. I learn a lot, actually, which is great. And I do like the tip around Post-it notes. They can be useful, can't they? But you've got to, as you say, perhaps take one down, try and remember what it was about, put it back up again. It's that whole read, cover, check that we used to all do when we were younger. So that actively engaging your brain, that's very good. Okay, so I'm at my desk, I've done that. So my exam's tomorrow. I've listened to you, Helen. I've done all those things that you said, but I'm still a bit nervous.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I mean, national exams have been cancelled now for 2 years. So a lot of students don't have that experience of sitting in a large exam hall. So if you can, I'd imagine you firstly go and see this exam hall. So that will help calm any nerves. And you can better imagine yourself sitting there at the desk. Otherwise, you prepare for that moment. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself sitting in the hall writing your answers. Instead of being at your desk at home or at school, you're in another room doing your work, showing what you know, picking up marks. Think about it in positive terms. When you're in the exam hall, you're in the moment, focused, and your surroundings will not matter.
I like the element around thinking positively. So, and if you get into the mindset that it's an opportunity for me to show all these, last years that I've been learning and working, it's an opportunity to show that. If you can shift your mindset, that might be, a way of really overcoming those nerves a little bit. But as you say, it's natural to feel nervous, isn't it?
But if you've done your preparation, your revision, you can look forward to the exam. Do your best, do in the moment, then it's over. So that reward is it being over, and you've done as well as you can.
Very true. Very true. So we're moving into the exam now. So I'm in the exam room. Perhaps I haven't sat an exam for many years or even before. There's quite a bit for me to think about, really, isn't there?
There is. So you've got the paper in front of you. Read the question carefully. Read it more than once. Answer that question that's been set. Use the key words in your answer. Look at the command words. And if you're not sure what a command word is, I'm sure that's what you're going to ask.
It was what I was going to ask, because sometimes people don't understand what is a command word, and they're so important exam questions.
That's right. Explain, describe, analyse, compare, assess, evaluate, all of these words. These are instructions, if you like. These words tell you what you're being asked to do in an exam question. If the question says, explain how X contributes to something, explain the role of Y, then you must do that and explain. If instead you give a very detailed and accurate description, you're not answering the question. Showing detailed factual knowledge isn't sufficient if the question asks for an assessment or an evaluation. So exam boards provide lists of command words on their website to help students just with this idea. So it could be useful to spend a moment looking at these command words from the website or from some past papers to familiarise yourself with the command words in the subject. Right, so you've just put a past paper on the screen.
Yeah.
Command word: calculate, explain why, suggest one reason.
Yeah.
So that's there. Those are the command words. That's what you're being asked to do. But more than that, let's pick up on something else on that paper. Right, the exam boards, the layout of the paper. The exam boards have been spent a lot of time designing this paper in order to help you as a candidate. Right. The exam board layout is clear to give you all the best chance to demonstrate what you know. So if there are 3 printed lines, you can expect the answer to fit comfortably within those 3 lines. If there's a single printed line, the answer should fit in that space. It's likely to be a single word or number, 1 mark. The number of marks is an indicator of how much time and how much detail you're likely to need in the answer. It's designed there it's there to guide you. So it guides the amount of time you should spend on an answer. So you should absolutely spend more time and write more for a 25-mark question than you should for a 12-mark question. And if this sort of detail is new to you, or you haven't looked at a past paper in your subject for a long time, I strongly advise you to go and do so, and to check the command words, the answer space, and the marks for each question. What you want to do is go in the exam hall as prepared as you can be. And as one of my old teachers said, preparation beats perspiration. You don't want to be sweating it out in the exam hall because this is the first time you've seen an exam paper. You don't know why your answer doesn't fit on 1 line. Perhaps only 1 word is required. Short answer, 3 marks, 3 things.
Good.
The marks, the layout of the paper.
That's good, actually, because quite a lot of the exam boards have past papers on their website that are available to the public. And they also have the mark schemes, don't they? So just another question, perhaps, how can you use a mark scheme? Because you have often a paper and the mark scheme for that paper. Mm-hmm. How can you use that as part of your revision preparation, would you say?
Well, I'd suggest you do the paper first before you look at the mark scheme, and then compare your answers with the answers in the mark scheme. Mark schemes are a guide, remember, as well. They guide the examiners. So there is a little bit of flexibility sometimes, but the key words will often be highlighted or underlined. That key element will tell you what the examiner is looking for, and that is what's credited. So there should be a close link between what you put down in an exam answer and the mark scheme.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we've run through from, I'm just about to finish all my learning, I now need to revise, right through to that revision that I'm carrying out at my desk, into the exam hall, and then how to actually engage with the paper. So I'm sure there's quite a lot of questions from those who are on the call. So as they come up, we can answer those either directly or sort of live to those who are posting them. As they start to come in, I'll just ask a couple of more questions that have just come to me, if that's okay, Helen, as we're going through. So just going back to that sitting the exam in the exam room, you know, I'm looking to finish the paper, but I realise I've only got 5 minutes left. And it may be I haven't managed to get to all the questions, perhaps. Perhaps I haven't taken your advice on how to manage my time. So how would I answer that? And there's a relative question to that from Matthew, actually. So perhaps we can look at those together.
There's perhaps 2 things there. If you've only got 5 minutes left, there's not very much you're going to be able to put down in those 5 minutes. No. So go for short answer questions, 1 mark questions, where you can put down 1 word or 1 idea and pick up the mark.
Yeah,
you can't start a 10 mark question in the last 5 minutes. You're going to find it very, very hard. So if you're running out of time, make sure you've answered those short answers, any multi-choice or the very short answer questions. If you need to, that I think is the best answer. Go for the low mark questions, pick up the marks.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. If I've done all the low mark, I've got a 10, 15, 20 mark question left, but I can't put it into, I can't write an essay. I haven't got the time to do that. What can I do there? I want to try and show I know something about this topic and in some way answer the question. What would an examiner accept, really?
I would say, look at the command word. What are you being asked to do? Is it describe? Is it evaluate? Is it compare? If it's compare, you put the information down on one side, or put the information for one part at the top, then underneath you put the other bit for comparing. So even though you haven't been able to put everything out in words, you've got that layout of a comparison in brief on your exam answer.
Okay, so would I pick up marks if I wrote in bullet points, for example, even if I haven't sort of answered the question necessarily? Would I get any marks for just showing I understand this?
If you're on the right lines and you've begun to sketch out an answer, you can be credited for that. You, of course, won't get as many marks because you can't pick up marks for the structure of your answer, but you've got some detail down. And of course, putting something down is always better than putting nothing down. But do look at that command word and try and get that into as short a space as possible if you're running out of time.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Just perhaps something else that came to me, actually, Helen, taking a step back. Some of our students, no students on the call, may only be taking one GCSE or one A level, or just sitting that this time, but some may be taking a 2 or 3 or even more. How do you prepare from a time-wise perspective in your lead up to that exam sort of session when you might be studying more than one subject?
You need to fit those 2 or 3 topics, 2 or 3 exams into your timetable. You should be flexible enough to say, I'm going to do one topic in the morning, different one in the afternoon, or one day one topic, another day a different subject. Because exams, you could be sitting one exam for one subject in the morning and a different subject in the afternoon. Your brain will cope with that flexibility. It will be working on the other subject while you're working on another one. You need to be flexible. Don't lock it out and do 1 week of one subject, 1 week of another subject. Mix them up.
Yeah, good, thank you. We've got a question from Mattia. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. How important is a perfect English writing skill? So the style that you're writing in. I think this varies depending on the assessment objectives, doesn't it, for that particular subject? Is that something you can answer, Helen?
It depends on the specification and assessment objectives. If you're doing an English language exam, the quality of the English will matter. What you'll often find is the structure of your answer will matter. A well-structured answer will give a good argument. You're likely to be more persuasive and convincing in your answer. Sometimes it's about terminology. If you're doing a biology exam, it's those answers and the precision in your answer which matters. That's not a writing skill. It's a question of how much do you know the terminology for your subject.
Good, thank you. And somebody's also written around extra paper for writing a plan. Now, I had a great A-level teacher, this is many, many years ago, who said, write a plan and then cross through it, which was the advice I took forward, actually. That was, as I said, many years ago. Is that still relevant? Is that still advice you'd give to students who are having to write those long answer questions?
You'll often get an answer booklet now to write your exams in these essay questions. You can take some of that and do your plan within that and then cross it out. A lot of exams will also have a booklet, and you simply write short answer responses and you write in those. You put your hand up otherwise and someone will come to you and give you extra paper.
Good, thank you very much. A plan can be useful for those longer, some of the subjects when they have those longer questions. Particularly, I used to find just throwing down everything I knew quite quickly would help. Then I could relax and then go back and try and devise the answer using those command words to make sure I'm actually answering the question. There's a question about the difference between paper 1 and paper 2. Obviously, that's the case for many A-level subjects. Anything you can ask tell Marta on that, Helen?
You need to know exactly what paper 1 is and paper 2 is before you go in the exam hall. Go and look at the exam specification or past papers on the website They will be examining different topics, different assessment objectives. It may be paper 1 is about some part of one historical period, paper 2 is a different historical period. You need to know what you're going in, what exam and which paper you'll be answering.
So that's all around that preparedness as well, isn't it? Just sort of know, okay, that day is paper 1 and paper 1 is this, therefore I need to revise that for that day. So just making sure you've looked at all that information.
That's right. It's a way for the exam boards to split up the syllabus. Here's the whole syllabus. We'll put that into paper 1. We'll put that into paper 2. May demand different content, may require different skills as well.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions. So unless anybody's got any questions that I'd like to ask now, I'll probably start to wrap up, if that's okay, Helen. Oh no, we've got another one. Just checking in. That's a great name. But a really good question. So we've all got lots of other commitments in our lives. How would you devise a revision schedule if you're working full-time and managing a family? I've been there. I did my master's when I was working full-time and had 3 little children. So I'll see what Helen says, and I'll give you my personal view on it as well.
Yeah, it's different. It's going to be realistic. What can you realistically manage? You're not a machine. You can't work every day, every night until midnight, 7 days a week. Give yourself some rewards, some downtime. That might be with the family doing something. You'll need to get out of those 4 walls. You can't move from one room to another room and all be studying, but you need a plan. Think through what you can realistically do, decide, see when the exam is, work backwards, make a plan. Some people get up early, do a little bit before the children get up. Some people will do it in the evening. You might be able to do some at work. It depends on your own schedule, your own circumstances, but be realistic. And
I think that's very good advice. Realistic, yes. You know, you're saying I'm going to cover 6 topics today, and then one of your children are off sick, and then you've got so the flexibility around that realism, I think, is needed as well, isn't it?
And I just say, don't beat yourself up about it if you can't do something one day. There is tomorrow. You adjust your plan.
Yeah.
Be positive about it. You can do it.
Yeah. So just checking in, yes, I went through that, and I did, as Helen said, I had a very good, I used to love writing revision plans. Sometimes it was getting down to the actual revision that was the hardest part. But it was, I also had a little space where I could just go away from everybody. That was quite important, so that then that just physically moving to a different space meant my brain got into the sort of revision mode, and just lots and lots of just, you know, bite-sized little bits of revision that you could grab between certain time, I think was useful for me as well. But we all learn in different ways, don't we, Helen? There's quite a bit of research around the different, you know, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, which is that active learning. Are there anything you can say around that? Any different revision methods that work well around those? It's
find what works best for you. That if flashcards work for you, good. If sticking things on the wall works for you, if reading a list works for you, do it. You should by now know what works and how you learn effectively and how you revise effectively. So if something works, stick with it. But by all means, try a few new things. But if you're sitting for an exam, you've got a deadline, you need something that works.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you for those who've posed questions to us, and for engaging with the webinar. We just, as I said, it was a light touch over a few things that hopefully has been a reminder or given you something new to think about. There's also additional resources we've signposted you to. So I hope you found it useful. Good luck with your exams. I'm sure they'll go very well. And if you have any specific questions and you're a National Extension College student, please just email in or phone us to get those questions answered. But obviously we have lots of resources for our students on our Learn App platform that you can engage with to help you with your revision. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you for your time and your wisdom. And thank you for those in the background who've been monitoring the chat and passing on information. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.